Mira Hampton stood frozen in her kitchen, coffee mug suspended halfway to her lips. The morning light streamed through the bay windows, illuminating the perfectly arranged fruit bowl on the marble island, a picture of domestic tranquility shattered by 7 innocent words. "Why did Daddy and your yoga teacher sleep in your bed last night?" Lily, her 5-year-old daughter, gazed up at her with wide, curious eyes, strawberry milk mustache adorning her upper lip, completely unaware of how her question had just detonated Mira's carefully constructed life. "What did you say, sweetheart?" Mira's voice emerged thin and brittle, barely masking the tremor underneath. "I got scared of the thunder last night and went to your room. But Daddy and Miss Jade were sleeping in your bed," Lily explained, matter-of-factly swinging her legs from the bar stool. "You were in the guest room. Did you have a fight?" The mug slipped from Mira's grasp, shattering against the kitchen tile. Coffee splashed across the pristine floor, spreading like the realization flooding through her veins. Daniel, her husband of 8 years, and Jade Palmer, the lithe, 20-something yoga instructor she'd been taking classes from for the past 6 months. In their bed. While she was away on a business trip that had ended a day earlier than scheduled. "Mommy, you're spilling everywhere." Lily's voice seemed distant now, drowned out by the rushing in Mira's ears. "It's okay, baby," Mira managed, her autopilot taking over as she grabbed paper towels. "Mommy just had a little accident." She knelt to clean the mess, grateful for the moment to hide her face from her daughter's perceptive gaze. Her mind raced, piecing together 100 small details she'd dismissed. Daniel's sudden interest in supporting her wellness journey by encouraging her weekly yoga sessions, his convenient late meetings on the days Jade taught private lessons at their home, the lingering scent of unfamiliar perfume she'd attributed to her own paranoia. "Is Daddy in trouble?" Lily asked, her small face suddenly concerned. Mira looked at her daughter, Daniel's eyes, her chin, and felt her heart fracturing. "No, sweetheart," she lied, rising to her feet with practiced composure. "Everything's fine. Why don't you go watch your show while I clean this up?" When Lily skipped off to the living room, Mira braced herself against the counter, knuckles white against the marble. Her wedding ring caught the morning light, the diamond throwing prisms across the wall. 3 carats, a promise of forever that had apparently expired without her knowledge. Upstairs, the shower turned on. Daniel was awake. Mira straightened her spine, a strange calm settling over her. She picked up her phone and opened her calendar, noting Jade's private session scheduled for that very afternoon. Then she opened her banking app and made 3 quick transfers, emptying their joint accounts into her personal one. By the time Daniel came downstairs, freshly showered and oblivious, Mira had already formulated a plan. She kissed him goodbye as he left for work, her lips curved in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Love you," he called over his shoulder, car keys jingling in his hand. "I know exactly how much," Mira whispered, watching him drive away. Inhale, extend, and fold forward into Uttanasana. Jade Palmer's melodic voice guided the class through the flow sequence, her slender body demonstrating each move with practiced precision. Mira Hampton struggled in the back row, her corporate stiffened muscles protesting against the unfamiliar stretches. "Beautiful, everyone. Now sink deeper if you can," Jade encouraged, walking between the mats to make adjustments. She stopped behind Mira, placing gentle hands on her shoulders. "Relax here," she murmured. "You're carrying all your tension in your upper back." Mira tried to release the knot of stress lodged between her shoulder blades, a souvenir from 12 years climbing the corporate ladder at Brenner Financial, where she'd recently been promoted to senior investment director. At 42, she was the youngest person and only woman on the executive team. "Better," Jade smiled, moving on to the next student. After class, as Mira rolled up her mat, Jade approached her. "First time? That obvious?" Mira laughed, embarrassed. "Everyone starts somewhere," Jade said. "I'm impressed you kept up. Most newcomers take breaks during that sequence." "I'm not good at taking breaks," Mira admitted. "I can tell." Jade's green eyes sparkled with amusement. You have the determined energy of someone who excels at everything she attempts. Not everything. Mira gestured at her mat. Clearly not yoga? Yet, Jade corrected. Not yoga yet. I teach private lessons if you're interested in catching up to the class level faster. Something about Jade's confidence and easy grace appealed to Mira, who had spent her entire adult life in the testosterone-soaked world of investment banking. She found herself agreeing to Tuesday afternoon sessions at her home, where she had converted the sunroom into a home office that could double as a workout space. That evening, Mira mentioned the arrangement to Daniel over dinner, private yoga lessons. He looked up from his plate, eyebrows raised. That seems excessive. The doctor said I need to manage my stress better after my last physical, Mira reminded him. My blood pressure was borderline high, right? Daniel nodded, returning to his meal. Well, if it helps you relax, I'm all for it. Their conversation drifted to Lily's upcoming school play, work commitments, and the leak in the garage that needed fixing. The comfortable routine of their marriage, solid if somewhat predictable after 8 years together. Later, as Mira prepared for bed, she caught Daniel watching her from the doorway of their ensuite bathroom. What? She asked, patting face cream onto her cheeks. You look nice, he said simply. Mira glanced at her reflection, hair piled messily atop her head. Face scrubbed clean of makeup, oversized Harvard Business School t-shirt hanging off one shoulder. It had been a while since Daniel had looked at her like that, with genuine appreciation rather than habitual affection. Thank you, she said, warmth spreading through her chest. Maybe they just needed to pay more attention to each other. Maybe I should sit in on one of these yoga sessions, Daniel suggested, his tone casual as he turned down the bed. Could help my golf swing. Trust me, you don't want to see me flailing around like an uncoordinated giraffe, Mira laughed. Besides, you'd be bored out of your mind, Daniel shrugged. But something in his expression, a flicker of intent, registered in Mira's subconscious before fading away. Over the next several months, Mira found herself looking forward to her Tuesday sessions with Jade. The younger woman brought a breath of fresh energy into her carefully structured life, encouraging Mira to explore movements and sensations beyond her comfort zone. Your body knows what it needs, Jade often said. You just have to learn to listen to it instead of bulldozing through with sheer willpower. It was a revolutionary concept for Mira, who had built her career on ignoring physical and emotional limits in pursuit of success. Under Jade's guidance, she began to notice small changes, sleeping better, feeling less irritable with her team at work, being more present with Lily rather than mentally composing emails while reading bedtime stories. Daniel noticed the changes too. Whatever that yoga guru is doing, it's working, he commented one evening, as they sat on the back deck sharing a bottle of wine after Lily had gone to bed. You seem lighter somehow. Mira smiled, feeling the pleasant stretch in muscles that had been chronically tight for years. Jade says I'm her perfect student. Apparently, I've progressed faster than anyone she's taught before. A strange expression crossed Daniel's face. Jade, you talk about her a lot. Do I? Mira hadn't realized. She's just easy to talk to. Different from people at work. Meaning she doesn't have a penis? Daniel joked, but there was an edge to his voice. Meaning she doesn't view everything as a zero-sum competition? Mira corrected, slightly annoyed. It's refreshing. Daniel swirled his wine thoughtfully. What's she like? You never really describe her. I don't know. She's centered, I guess. Calm. Mira paused, considering. She's younger, maybe 30. Lives in that converted warehouse district downtown. Traveled through India and Thailand for a couple of years teaching English and studying yoga. No kids, not married, she shrugged. Why? Just curious about who's spending time with my wife. Daniel topped off their glasses. Maybe we should have her over for dinner sometime. Maybe, Mira agreed, though something about the suggestion made her uneasy. She'd come to value her sessions with Jade as a space that existed outside her roles as executive, mother and wife, a small corner of life that was just for her. The following Tuesday, Jade arrived for their session wearing fitted black leggings and a cropped tank top, that revealed a small lotus flower tattoo on her lower back. As they moved through their warm-up sequence, the front door opened unexpectedly. "Hello?" Daniel's voice called from the entryway. Mira froze in downward dog. "Daniel? You're home early." He appeared in the doorway, smiling apologetically. "Meeting canceled. Thought I'd surprise you." His eyes lingered on Jade, who straightened gracefully. "You must be the husband," Jade said, extending her hand. "I'm Jade Palmer, Daniel Hampton." He shook her hand, holding it perhaps a beat too long. "Sorry to interrupt." "Don't mind me. I've got some emails to catch up on." Instead of retreating to his study, however, Daniel settled on the living room couch with his laptop, positioned with a clear view into the sunroom. Throughout the remainder of the session, Mira caught him watching, his attention more on Jade's demonstrations than his screen. After Jade left, Mira confronted him. "That was weird. What was?" Daniel asked, feigning innocence. "You never come home early, and suddenly you're playing audience to my yoga session?" He closed his laptop. "Can a man be interested in his wife's hobbies?" "Since when have you been interested in anything I do that doesn't involve Lily or dinner parties with your clients?" The words escaped before Mira could censor them, carrying more resentment than she'd realized she harbored. Daniel's expression hardened. "That's not fair. I support everything you do." "Support isn't the same as interest," Mira countered. "Fine. I'm interested now. In fact," he added, his tone deliberately casual, "I was thinking about signing up for Jade's regular class at the studio. The one you're always too busy to attend because of work." Mira stared at him, a flicker of unease traveling up her spine. "Why would you do that?" "Because," Daniel said slowly, "unlike my wife, I'm not too busy to take an interest in things that might bring us closer together." The accusation hung in the air between them, layered with years of small disconnections neither had acknowledged. For a moment, Mira glimpsed the fragility of the life they'd built, how easily it could fracture along fault lines they'd been carefully stepping around. "Fine," she said finally. "Do whatever you want." 2 weeks later, Mira canceled her Tuesday session with Jade for the first time. A major client was threatening to pull their portfolio, necessitating an emergency damage control meeting that ran late into the evening. When she finally arrived home after 9, she found Daniel in the kitchen, opening a bottle of wine. "Lily's asleep," he said. "I left a plate for you in the microwave." "Thanks," Mira sighed, kicking off her heels. "God, what a day! The Westover account is imploding, and if we lose them, that's $60 million walking out the door." Daniel nodded, but seemed distracted. Jade came by. Mira paused in the act of removing her earrings. "What? Why?" "You forgot to cancel your session," Daniel explained, pouring 2 glasses of Cabernet. "She waited for about 20 minutes. Then I told her you were stuck at work. She suggested I might want to try some stress relief poses since I was home anyway." Something in his tone made Mira look at him more carefully. "And did you?" Daniel shrugged. "Basic stuff. Stretches, really. Turns out I carry a lot of tension in my shoulders, too." He smiled, an intimate expression that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Must run in the family." Mira reached for her phone. "I should apologize for standing her up. Already taken care of," Daniel said smoothly. I settled up her fee and rescheduled for next week. She was very understanding. That night, lying awake beside Daniel's sleeping form, Mira found herself replaying the conversation. Something felt off, a subtle shift in the atmosphere of their home that she couldn't quite pinpoint. She told herself she was being paranoid, transferring the stress from work onto her home life. Still, the next morning, she found herself opening her laptop to search for Jade Palmer on social media. The yoga instructor's Instagram was filled with impossibly elegant poses in exotic locations, interspersed with inspirational quotes about listening to one's inner truth. Mira scrolled back several months, noting the increasing frequency of posts tagged at the local studio where she'd first met Jade. Then she paused on a photo from 6 weeks earlier, Jade in tree pose on a familiar-looking deck. With a jolt, Mira recognized the distinctive railing of the Overlook, an upscale bar downtown where she and Daniel had celebrated their anniversary last year. The caption read simply, "New connections. New energy. Grateful. Openness." The date was from 3 weeks before Jade had approached her about private lessons. Mira closed the laptop, telling herself the coincidence meant nothing. Still, she found herself checking Daniel's credit card statement that evening while he bathed Lily, noting dinner charges from the Overlook on the same date as Jade's post. A business dinner, surely. Daniel entertained clients regularly. When he emerged from Lily's room, she asked casually, "Remember that dinner at the Overlook last month?" "Who was that with again?" Daniel didn't hesitate. "Reynolds from Pacific Trust." "Why?" "Just trying to keep track for the quarterly expense reports," Mira lied smoothly. "Thanks." She didn't mention finding Jade's photo. Didn't mention the knot of suspicion forming in her stomach. Instead, she smiled and suggested they watch that series they'd been meaning to start, curling against him on the couch as if nothing had changed. But the next Tuesday, she came home early from work, arriving 20 minutes before Jade's scheduled session was set to end. The house was quiet, too quiet. Mira moved through the downstairs rooms silently, noting 2 empty wine glasses on the kitchen counter. Then she heard it, soft laughter from upstairs. Mira stood at the bottom of the staircase, one hand on the banister, paralyzed by indecision. Part of her wanted to charge up and confront whatever she might find. Another part recoiled from the potential confirmation of her fears. In that moment of hesitation, the upstairs shower turned on. Moments later, Jade descended the stairs, hair slightly damp at the temples, cheeks flushed. She startled visibly at the sight of Mira. "Oh, you're home early." Jade recovered quickly, composing her features into a warm smile. "Daniel mentioned you might join us one of these days." "Join you?" Mira repeated, struggling to keep her voice neutral. "For the sessions." Jade adjusted the strap of her bag on her shoulder. "He's been taking advantage of the time slot when you can't make it. Actually has quite a natural aptitude." Before Mira could respond, Daniel appeared at the top of the stairs, a towel around his neck, wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt. "Mira, you're home." He seemed surprised but not particularly guilty. "We just finished up. Jade's been helping me with that chronic lower back pain. Doctor recommended," he added with a casual smile. Jade glanced between them, then moved toward the door. "I should get going. Same time next week?" After she left, Mira confronted Daniel directly. "How long have you been taking sessions with my yoga instructor?" "A few weeks," Daniel admitted easily. "When you can't make your slot." "Seemed a waste to pay for the time and not use it." "And you didn't think to mention this to me?" Daniel's eyes narrowed slightly. "I didn't realize I needed permission to improve my health." "Isn't that what you've been doing?" Mira felt the conversation slipping away from her intended confrontation. Was she overreacting? The evidence was circumstantial at best. Wine glasses could be innocent, a shower after exercise normal. The coincidence at the Overlook possibly just that. A coincidence. "Of course not," she backtracked. "I was just surprised." Daniel's expression softened. He approached her, placing his hands on her shoulders. "Hey, what's really bothering you?" For a moment, Mira considered laying out her suspicions, demanding answers. Instead, she heard herself say nothing. "Just tired. Big presentation tomorrow." "Then you should rest," Daniel said, dropping a kiss on her forehead. "I'll handle dinner tonight." As he moved toward the kitchen, Mira couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just failed some crucial test, not of his fidelity, but of her own courage to face what might be happening right under her nose. Over the next month, Mira became a detective in her own home, collecting evidence with methodical precision while maintaining the facade of normalcy. She noted Daniel's sudden interest in his appearance. New clothes, a different cologne, increased time at the gym. She documented the growing frequency of late meetings and weekend golf games that left him unreachable for hours. Most tellingly, she observed the subtle shift in his attention toward her, a renewed sexual interest that felt performative rather than genuine, as if he were comparing techniques or experiences. Then came the business trip to Chicago, 3 days of intensive meetings with potential new clients that couldn't be rescheduled. Mira had almost canceled when Lily came down with a low-grade fever, but the school nurse assured her it was just a minor virus circulating among the kindergarteners. Daniel insisted he could handle things at home. "I've got this," he'd said, practically shooing her toward the door. "Go close those deals." The meetings had gone exceedingly well, so well that the final dinner concluded 2 hours earlier than anticipated. On impulse, Mira had taken a red-eye flight home, arriving at midnight instead of the following afternoon as scheduled. The house had been dark and quiet when she let herself in. Not wanting to wake anyone, she'd settled in the guest room, planning to surprise Lily in the morning. And now, standing in her kitchen with broken ceramic at her feet and her daughter's innocent question hanging in the air, Mira realized she'd been collecting breadcrumbs when she should have been preparing for an earthquake. At exactly 2 p.m., the doorbell rang. Mira checked her reflection in the hall mirror. Hair freshly blown out, makeup subtle but flawless, wearing the blue wrap dress that Daniel had once said made her eyes look like the Caribbean. She opened the door to find Jade on the doorstep, yoga mat tucked under one arm, wearing form-fitting athletic wear, and a serene smile that faltered slightly at the sight of Mira's attire. "Oh," Jade said, recovering quickly. "I thought we had a session today. Are you going out?" "Not at all." Mira stepped back, gesturing for Jade to enter. "Please come in. I thought we might try something different today." Confusion flickered across Jade's perfect features. "Different?" Mira led her into the living room, where 2 glasses and a bottle of Sauvignon Blanc waited on the coffee table. "I thought maybe we could just talk, woman to woman, teacher to student." She poured the wine, extending a glass to Jade. "I have so much to learn from you." Jade hesitated before accepting the glass. "About yoga?" "Among other things." Mira settled onto the couch, crossing her legs precisely. "You've been giving private lessons to my husband." It wasn't a question, but Jade answered anyway. "Yes, he expressed interest in addressing some chronic pain issues." "How dedicated of him." Mira sipped her wine, maintaining eye contact. "And these lessons, they've been happening when exactly?" "Usually when you're working late," Jade replied, her composure intact but wariness entering her eyes. "Daniel mentioned you approved the arrangement." "Did he?" Mira smiled thinly. "How considerate of him to speak for me." An uncomfortable silence stretched between them. Jade placed her untouched wine on the table. "Perhaps we should reschedule for another day." "Oh, but I'm so curious about these special techniques you've been teaching my husband," Mira continued as if she hadn't heard. "Lily mentioned seeing quite an advanced pose in my bedroom last night, during a thunderstorm." Her voice remained pleasant, conversational. "What do you call that position exactly?" The color drained from Jade's face. "Mira, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding," Mira interrupted calmly. "My 5-year-old daughter is many things, but a liar isn't one of them." Jade stood abruptly. "I should go." "Without explaining how fucking my husband factors into your wellness practice?" Mira's voice remained level even as vulgarity punctuated her question. "That seems unprofessional." "This isn't." "We didn't mean for me to find out?" Mira finished. "Or for my daughter to be the one to tell me?" Jade's composure cracked. "It just happened, Mira. We connected and connected." Mira nodded as if considering this. "At the Overlook, perhaps? 6 weeks?" "Before you approached me about private lessons?" Jade's silence was confirmation enough. "So this was planned," Mira continued, pieces locking into place. "You saw him there, decided to pursue him, and I was." "What? The convenient access point? The obstacle to work around?" "It wasn't like that," Jade protested weakly. "Then enlighten me." Jade took a shaky breath. "Daniel and I met at the Overlook. Yes. He mentioned his wife was stressed, needed balance. I thought I could help. But then I met you. And you were so driven, so impressive. Nothing like he described. And what did he describe? Mira asked quietly. Someone cold, unavailable, career-obsessed. Jade looked down. I convinced myself I was helping, that maybe you'd benefit from the lessons even if Daniel and I, even if you betrayed me in my own home. Mira stood, moving to the mantelpiece, where family photos documented birthdays, holidays, vacations, moments of a life she now understood had been undermined for months. While using my money to fund your little seduction. I'm sorry, Jade whispered. Truly. I'm sure you think you are, Mira replied, turning back to face her. But here's what will happen now. You're going to leave my house and never contact my husband again. You'll resign from the studio and find somewhere else to peddle your particular brand of wellness. You can't. I can, and I will, Mira cut her off. Because if you don't, the studio owner and the yoga certification board will receive detailed evidence of your ethical violations. I imagine sleeping with clients violates some professional standard or other. Jade paled. You wouldn't. I've spent 20 years in corporate finance, Mira smiled coldly. Destroying competitors is literally in my job description. You're not even a worthy adversary. After Jade fled, Mira calmly cleaned the wine glasses, returned the untouched bottle to the wine fridge, and checked the time. Daniel would be home in approximately 3 hours, just enough time to implement the next phase of her plan. Daniel arrived home at 6:17 p.m., calling out as he entered. Hello? Anyone home? Mira emerged from the kitchen, wearing an apron, spatula in hand. In here. Just finishing dinner. He paused, taking in the domestic scene with evident surprise. You cooked? Don't sound so shocked, Mira laughed, returning to the stove where salmon fillets sizzled in a pan. I do know how, even if I don't often have time. Daniel approached cautiously, dropping his briefcase by the kitchen island. Where's Lily? Sleepover at Emma's. Remember? We discussed it last week. This was true. The playdate had been scheduled for weeks. What Daniel didn't know was that Mira had arranged for Lily to stay the entire weekend, not just overnight. Right. Daniel nodded, still seeming unsettled by the unexpected scenario. Can I help with anything? Open the wine? Mira suggested, gesturing to a bottle of his favorite Cabernet already breathing on the counter. It's been a day. As they sat down to dinner, Mira maintained a performance of relaxed normalcy, sharing amusing anecdotes from work, asking about his day, touching his hand occasionally across the table. By the second glass of wine, Daniel had relaxed into the unexpected intimacy, clearly relieved that his indiscretion remained undiscovered. This is nice, he said, refilling their glasses. We should do this more often. We should, Mira agreed, sipping her wine slowly while ensuring his glass never emptied. Remember when we used to have actual conversations, before schedules and mortgages and preschool applications consumed everything? Daniel nodded, a hint of guilt crossing his features. I miss those days sometimes. Me too. Mira leaned forward, holding his gaze. Do you know what else I miss? Spontaneity? Surprise? Like tonight, Daniel gestured at the remains of their meal. Exactly. Mira smiled. Speaking of which, I have another surprise for you. She rose, taking his hand and leading him upstairs to their bedroom, where she had carefully set the stage. Dimmed lights, fresh bedding, soft music playing from hidden speakers. Daniel pulled her against him, his intentions clear. What's gotten into you today? Maybe I realized I've been neglecting what matters, Mira murmured against his neck. Maybe I wanted to remind you what you have right here. Later, as Daniel drifted into wine-assisted sleep beside her, Mira lay awake, mentally checking off another item from her list. The performance had served its purpose. Daniel suspected nothing of the storm gathering just beyond his awareness. She slipped from the bed and padded silently to her home office, unlocking the bottom drawer of her desk where she'd stored the files she'd compiled over the past 12 hours. Financial records, text message logs recovered from the family cloud, account, hotel receipts, and most damning of all, footage from the nanny cam in Lily's room that had coincidentally captured the hallway view of Jade entering the master bedroom the previous night. Methodically, Mira began transferring these materials to a secure online folder, which she then shared with her attorney, along with instructions for Monday morning. Only when that was complete did she return to bed, sliding in beside the man who had betrayed everything they'd built together. Tomorrow would bring consequences. Tonight, she needed rest. Mira woke before Daniel, slipping out of bed to prepare coffee and check her email. Her attorney had already responded, confirming receipt of the materials and availability for a Monday meeting. Perfect. When Daniel finally emerged, disheveled and slightly hungover, she greeted him with a smile and a steaming mug. "Good morning, Sleeping Beauty." "What time is it?" he mumbled, accepting the coffee gratefully. "Almost 11, Mira replied. "You needed the rest." Daniel scrubbed a hand over his face. 11? Jesus, I can't remember the last time I slept this late. Where's Lily? Still at Emma's. I'm picking her up tomorrow. Tomorrow? Daniel looked confused. I thought it was just overnight. Mira shrugged, maintaining her casual demeanor. Emma's mom called. The girls are having so much fun. She offered to keep Lily an extra night. I figured we could use the alone time. Relief washed over Daniel's features, and Mira noted with clinical detachment how easily he accepted the unexpected gift of time without their daughter. Time that could have been spent with Jade had Mira not intercepted their plans. I was thinking, Mira continued, we should go out tonight. Somewhere special, like a date? Daniel smiled, reaching for her. Mira allowed herself to be pulled into his embrace, ignoring the revulsion that threatened to surface. Exactly like a date. The Highland Room at 8? I've already made reservations. The Highland Room was where they'd had dinner the night he proposed. The significance wasn't lost on Daniel, who looked equally pleased and discomforted by the gesture. Going all out on this reconnection weekend, aren't you? You have no idea, Mira murmured, extracting herself from his arms. I have some work emails to handle this morning, but the afternoon is all yours. Maybe you could pick up your suit from the dry cleaners? As Daniel showered and dressed, Mira continued her preparations. A call to the restaurant ensuring their specific table, the one with the spectacular view of the city skyline. A text to her closest friend and colleague, Vivian, confirming she was on standby for emergency support. And finally, a last review of the prenuptial agreement they'd signed 8 years earlier, with its crystal-clear infidelity clause that would leave Daniel with little more than his personal possessions and car if triggered. The day passed in a strange limbo of fake domesticity. They watched a movie on the couch, ordered lunch from their favorite deli, and spoke of safe topics, upcoming vacation plans, Lily's progress in swimming lessons, a possible kitchen renovation. All the while, Mira maintained her performance of the attentive, affectionate wife, storing away Daniel's relaxed responses as further evidence of his capacity for deception. By evening, as she dressed for dinner in a black cocktail dress that skimmed her curves perfectly, Mira felt a curious detachment from the woman reflected in the mirror, as if she were observing a character in a play approaching its final act. You look stunning, Daniel said when she emerged from the bathroom, his eyes appreciative as they traveled the length of her body. He looked handsome in his charcoal suit, freshly shaven, hair still slightly damp from the shower. For a fleeting moment, Mira felt a pang of grief for what they had been once, young, in love, full of plans for a future that had materialized in form but not in substance. Then she remembered Lily's innocent question and steeled herself against nostalgia. Shall we? She asked, extending her hand. The Highland Room occupied the top floor of the city's most exclusive hotel, its glass walls offering panoramic views of the skyline. Their table, positioned in a secluded corner with prime vantage of both the city lights and the restaurant's interior, awaited them with a bottle of champagne already chilling. Mrs. Hampton, Mr. Hampton, welcome back, the maitre d' greeted them warmly. We've prepared everything as requested. Daniel raised an eyebrow as they were seated. Special requests? Just ensuring we get the full experience, Mira replied smoothly. It's been years since we were here. Throughout the appetizer course, Mira maintained light conversation, asking Daniel about upcoming projects at work, sharing amusing office politics from her own job. By the time their entrees arrived, the champagne was gone, replaced by an expensive Bordeaux that Daniel had selected with obvious knowledge of the wine list. You've been here recently, Mira observed, watching him swirl the ruby liquid in his glass. A flicker of alarm crossed his features before he composed himself. What makes you say that? That wine, Mira nodded at his glass. It wasn't on the list last time we came. You selected it without even looking at the options. Daniel cleared his throat. One of my clients mentioned it. Supposed to be exceptional. I see. Mira sipped her water, noting another lie for her mental tally. Speaking of clients, how is Reynolds from Pacific Trust? Still keeping you busy at the Overlook? Daniel's fork paused halfway to his mouth. Reynolds? The client you had dinner with at the Overlook. The night you charged $347 to the Amex? Mira's voice remained conversational, but her eyes never left his face. March 18th, I believe. The color drained from Daniel's face as he realized the conversation had shifted into dangerous territory. Mira, I'm particularly curious, she continued as if he hadn't spoken, about how that business dinner coincided with Jade Palmer posting Instagram photos from the same venue. On the same night, she tilted her head. Remarkable coincidence, wouldn't you say? Daniel placed his fork down carefully. This isn't the place. Oh, I think it's exactly the place. Mira cut him off. Where better to discuss betrayal than the restaurant where you once promised to love and honor me for the rest of our lives? A muscle ticked in Daniel's jaw. Whatever you think happened, I don't think, Daniel. I know. Mira's voice hardened. What I don't know is whether you plan to leave me, or if you simply intended to continue fucking my yoga instructor in our bed indefinitely. Daniel glanced around nervously at nearby tables. Lower your voice. Why? Concerned about appearances? Mira laughed, the sound brittle. You weren't concerned about appearances when you brought her into our home. Into my bed. While our daughter was under the same roof. That was a mistake, Daniel hissed. One time, and it was a terrible lapse in judgment. One time? Mira raised an eyebrow. That's the defense you're going with? It's the truth, he insisted, reaching for her hand across the table. She withdrew it before he could make contact. Mira, please. I made a horrible mistake. It's been eating me alive. I was going to end it. When? Mira demanded. Before or after her session scheduled for Tuesday. Daniel's silence was damning. That's what I thought. Mira nodded, reaching for her purse. She extracted a slim folder and placed it on the table between them. I think you should review this before we continue this conversation. Reluctantly, Daniel opened the folder. His face went ashen as he flipped through the contents. Screenshots of text messages, hotel receipts, credit card statements documenting months of deception, and finally, still images captured from the nanny cam showing Jade entering their bedroom. How did you... Does it matter? Mira asked quietly. What matters is that I know everything, Daniel. The initial meeting that you orchestrated after seeing her at the studio. How you manipulated me into hiring her for private sessions so you could evaluate her up close. The business trips to Portland that coincided with her yoga retreats. All of it. Daniel closed the folder, his hands trembling slightly. What do you want from me? That's the wrong question, Mira replied, her voice steady. The right question is, what happens now? She signaled to the waiter, who approached with another envelope. This one, when Daniel opened it, contained divorce papers already bearing Mira's signature. You can sign these tonight and we'll proceed with a quiet, dignified separation, Mira explained. The prenup's infidelity clause will be enforced. You'll retain your personal assets and vehicle. But the house, investments, and the majority of our liquid assets remain with me. You'll have standard visitation with Lily, supervised initially, until I'm confident Jade won't be present during your time with our daughter. Daniel stared at the papers, shock giving way to anger. This is fucking ridiculous. You're trying to take everything. I'm enforcing the agreement you signed, Mira corrected him calmly. The one that clearly stated what would happen if either of us committed adultery. And if I refuse? Daniel challenged. Mira smiled thinly. Then on Monday morning, my attorney files for divorce citing adultery with considerable evidence. By afternoon, your partners at the firm will receive copies of that evidence, as will your parents, mine, and our closest friends. Your reputation, professional and personal, will be irreparably damaged. Daniel's face flushed with fury. You vindictive bitch. You'd destroy me to punish me for a mistake? A mistake is forgetting an anniversary, Daniel, Mira replied, her composure unshaken. What you did was a deliberate campaign of deception that exposed our daughter to your infidelity and made me question every moment of our marriage. And no, I'm not destroying you to punish you. I'm protecting myself and Lily from a man who has proven himself untrustworthy. For several long moments, they sat in tense silence, the elegant restaurant continuing its normal service around them, oblivious to the dissolution of a marriage occurring in its midst. Finally, Daniel reached for the pen she'd placed beside the documents. You've thought of everything, haven't you? I learned from the best, Mira replied softly. 12 years in corporate finance teaches you to anticipate threats and neutralize them efficiently. As Daniel signed page after page, his movements mechanical, Mira felt no triumph, only a hollow confirmation that the man she'd built a life with was, in the end, primarily concerned with limiting damage to himself. When he finished, sliding the papers back across the table, he asked, What about Lily? What will you tell her? The truth in age-appropriate terms, Mira answered. That sometimes adults make choices that hurt the people they love, and sometimes families have to change because of those choices. Daniel nodded, defeated. Can I at least say goodbye to her properly? You can see her next weekend, as outlined in the custody schedule. Mira gathered the documents, securing them in her purse. I'll have your essential items packed and sent to whatever address you provide. The rest can be arranged through our attorneys. As they rose to leave, Daniel paused. For what it's worth, I did love you. I still do, in my way. Mira met his gaze steadily. Your way wasn't enough, Daniel. Not for me, and certainly not for our daughter. She left him standing in the restaurant, walking out alone into the cool night air, feeling neither victorious nor devastated, simply resolved to rebuild what had been broken, not by her hands, but under her watch. Mommy, watch me, Lily called, executing a wobbly cartwheel on the green lawn of their new home, a modern townhouse in a quieter neighborhood, smaller than their previous house, but filled with more genuine laughter. Amazing! Mira applauded, setting down her coffee mug on the patio table. You've been practicing. Daddy's girlfriend taught me, Lily said innocently. She used to do gymnastics. Mira nodded, long past the point where mentions of Daniel's new relationship could wound her. After the divorce, he had indeed moved on. Not with Jade, who had disappeared from their lives as instructed, but eventually with a kindergarten teacher he'd met at one of Lily's school functions. Rebecca seemed kind, grounded, and genuinely fond of Lily, which was all Mira could ask for in the woman who now spent time with her daughter. Well, she taught you well, Mira said sincerely. Why don't you show Vivian when she gets here? Lily beamed, returning to her practice as Mira checked her watch. Vivian was bringing brunch ingredients, kicking off their now traditional Sunday gathering that had begun as support during the divorce, and evolved into something more complex and nurturing over the past year. The doorbell rang, and Lily raced to answer it, squealing with delight at the sight of Vivian laden with grocery bags. Behind her stood Marco, Vivian's brother and, though Mira was still cautious about using the term, Mira's boyfriend of 4 months. Need help with those? Mira asked, taking a bag from Vivian's arms. Always the rescuer, Vivian teased, following her to the kitchen while Marco stayed outside with Lily, admiring her cartwheels with appropriate enthusiasm. As they unpacked fresh berries, bread, and champagne for mimosas, Vivian nudged Mira playfully. "So, have you told her yet?" Mira glanced out the window at Lily, now showing Marco her attempt at a handstand. "Not yet. I wanted to be certain before involving her." "And are you?" "Certain?" Vivian pressed, her expression sobering. Mira considered the question carefully, as she did all important decisions since the dissolution of her marriage. The past year had transformed her, not hardening her, as she had initially feared, but clarifying her priorities and boundaries. The promotion to executive director that had come 3 months after the divorce had brought not just increased responsibility, but a renewed confidence in her professional judgment. The therapy sessions she'd committed to, both for herself and with Lily, had helped them navigate the choppy waters of their reconfigured family. And the careful steps she'd taken with Marco, from friendship to cautious dating to the current. Comfortable intimacy had taught her that trust, once shattered, could be rebuilt with the right foundation. "I am," Mira said finally. "Not about forever. I don't think I'll ever be certain about that again. But about right now, yes. He's good for me. Good for us." Vivian smiled, squeezing her arm. "That's more than most people ever find, you know." Through the window, Mira watched as Marco hoisted Lily onto his shoulders, the child's laughter floating across the yard. Unlike Daniel, whose attentions had always seemed performative, designed to impress or manipulate, Marco's kindness extended beyond strategic moments. He showed up, consistently and without expectation, his affection for both Mira and Lily evident in small, unremarkable gestures that accumulated into something remarkable. "I know," Mira agreed softly. Later, as the 4 of them sat around the patio table enjoying brunch in the dappled sunlight, Lily turned to Marco with her characteristic directness. "Are you my mom's boyfriend?" Marco nearly choked on his orange juice, looking to Mira for guidance. She nodded slightly, giving him permission to answer truthfully. "I am," he said, setting down his glass. "Is that okay with you?" Lily considered. "This seriously?" Her small brow furrowing in concentration. "Do you make my mom happy?" "I try to," Marco answered honestly. "But sometimes that's up to your mom." "He does make me happy," Mira confirmed, reaching across the table to take her daughter's hand. "But you make me happiest of all." Lily nodded, apparently satisfied. "Good, because I heard Emma's mom telling another mom that you were sad for too long after Daddy left, but you laugh more now." Mira felt a lump form in her throat at her daughter's perceptiveness. "I do laugh more now, don't I?" "A lot more," Lily agreed solemnly. "And you do yoga in the living room instead of with a teacher, and you don't look at your phone during my bedtime stories anymore." The simple observations, delivered with a child's unfiltered honesty, crystallized for Mira how profoundly their lives had changed, not just in the obvious structural ways, but in the quality of attention and presence she now brought to her relationships. The betrayal that had once threatened to define her had instead refined her, burning away the complacency that had allowed her marriage to deteriorate while she wasn't watching. In its place stood a woman more attuned to the subtle signals of both connection and disconnection, unwilling to outsource the maintenance of her most important relationships to habit or assumption. As brunch extended into afternoon, with Lily eventually nodding off for a nap on the living room couch, Mira found herself sitting beside Marco on the porch swing, Vivian having departed for a yoga class of her own. "You've been quiet," Marco observed, his arm resting lightly around her shoulders. Mira leaned into him, considering how to articulate the reflections that had occupied her thoughts throughout the day. "I was just thinking about questions," she said finally. "How the right question at the right moment can change everything." Marco nodded, waiting for her to continue. "A year ago, my daughter asked me why her father and my yoga teacher were sleeping in my bed," Mira explained. a simple question that shattered what I thought was my life. Today, she asked if you make me happy. She turned to face him, her eyes clear and direct. Different question, different life. And does this life feel right? Marco asked softly. Mira considered the path that had led her here. The pain, the hard choices, the careful rebuilding, and found herself nodding with quiet certainty. It feels true, she said simply, and that's better than right. Inside, Lily stirred on the couch, reaching reflexively for the stuffed elephant that had been her constant companion through the turbulent months of transition. Mira watched through the window as her daughter settled back into peaceful sleep, secure in the knowledge that her world, though changed, remained solid beneath her feet. Some questions broke worlds, others built them back stronger than before.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.